Honourable Member for Calgary-Fish Creek.
Mr. Speaker, the coal industry has been a steady source of gainful employment for thousands of Albertans for generations. In any economic climate, holding on to these jobs would be very important to the affected communities, but critical to their survival in the current economic and policy environment. Many of these affected communities are here with us this week for the AMDC conference. To the Minister of Environment, with mayors and reeves from across Alberta expressing significant concerns from fallout from your plan to rapidly phase out coal, will you consider taking a more balanced, job-protecting and taxpayer-conscious approach on this issue?
Minister of Energy. Environment.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the honourable member for the question. It's very clear that over the next 15 years there will be some coal-fired electricity retirements, Mr. Speaker. Those are under the federal coal regulations that were brought in by the Stephen Harper government that were supported by the Leader of the Official Opposition, Mr. Speaker. The only difference between 2016 and 2030 plan that are the federal coal retirements and the post-2030 provincial NDP plan, Mr. Speaker, is that for everyone there will now be investments in those communities for transitioning those communities. The Leader of the Official Opposition, when he was in federal government, would have left those communities with nothing, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. First supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It seems that we're saving Albertans while killing their jobs. Given that a number of the municipalities who signed the open letter to the Premier expressing concerns around economic fallout, high electricity rates and lower tax revenues are from NDP-held ridings, and given that this makes them constituents of your own MLAs, one would hope these concerns are taken seriously. To the Minister of the Environment, given community leaders have publicly called for caution in the government's approach, will you heed their concerns and take what could be characterized as rash actions back to the drawing board?
Minister of the Environment.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if rash actions are Stephen Harper's coal regulations, then I don't quite, I'm just not getting the connection here, Mr. Speaker. The fact of the matter is our government has made commitments to those communities for transition plans, including in all of those areas that were covered under the federal coal regulations. Now, Mr. Speaker, what is avoided by those Harper coal regulations? Let's see what was gazetted by the federal government in 2012 when they passed those regs. Over the next 20 years, it is estimated that 590 premature deaths could be avoided in Alberta, 530 emergency room visits in hospitals.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Second supplemental.
Nice to see that the Phillips plan is now the Harper plan. Given that PC Caucus has been advocating for an innovative approach combining industry research and their commitments with government objectives, and given 30 municipalities signed the open letter to the Premier advocating for a common sense dial-down, dial-up strategy as advanced by TransAlta, ATCO, Maxim and others, again to the Minister, given that a balanced strategy could achieve positive emissions outcomes while maintaining jobs and grid stability, why are you rejecting this approach brought forward by conscientious leaders of both community and industry?
Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, in the Climate Leadership Plan, which was praised by many of the electricity generators, Mr. Speaker, it was, that's a stone-cold fact. It was clear that we need to do something about the remaining 6 plants after 2030, Mr. Speaker. Now, the commitment that we have made to Albertans is that we will assist all of the communities, not just those who are affected by the post-2030 closures, Mr. Speaker, with economic development, and we have made those commitments clear to them, Mr. Speaker.